Today we're going to sit down in the 1-3 game for $500 and hope to get something going early on. It doesn't take us too long for that to happen as we look down at two black queens under the gun within the first orbit of playing. So definitely want to be opening up the action to $10, and apparently at the 1-3 level, 10 is not enough because we see 4 players going to a flop. Hoping to hit the flop or hoping that it doesn't look too suspicious, which does look pretty promising. The flop comes down 3-5-5 with 2 diamonds. Yeah, so definitely not the worst board. When action checks to me, queens is just very strong in this spot, so definitely need to be putting in a c-bet for value. I threw out $40 targeting any overpair, any diamond draw, and hopefully no one has a 5. So when I bet $40, this bet doesn't get too far because the hijack player, he looks that 40 is a pretty decent price, and he likes to make the call. The player directly after the hijack, the cutoff player, he insta-jams for around $300, which is a bit alarming. I've never played with this player before, and action does fold back around to me. So it is a bit ambitious from my perspective that he'd be doing this with a flush draw, considering it is a paired board. But at the same time, he could easily be doing this with another overpair, or maybe a 3 for thin value, even though that is pretty unlikely. Regardless, the point I'm making is, without a diamond in my hand, I'm just never folding here. So I decided to rip it all in myself. And now the hijack, he looks like he is a bit disappointed, but I guess he's priced in. So he elects to make the call himself, so now we're going 3 ways to see 2 more cards without any more action. The turn is a 9 and the river is a deuce, which the flush draw does work out and we still have an overpair. Still feeling pretty confident in my pair of queens, so I go ahead and table them, and luckily the hijack player has the look on his face of someone who missed his draw. And that is the case as he shows 10 deuce of diamonds, so a bit skeptical pre-flop. He did river a pair, but his pair is not going to beat my pair. Unfortunately though, the cutoff is going to be scooping the main pot with 4 or 5 of clubs, so I don't hate my jam on the river. Luckily, by me going for the jam though, I was allowed to scoop the side pot, so I only lost around 170 in that hand. What are you going to do? In this next hand, we look down at the same exact hand, pocket queens, except luckily this time we were on the button. It folds to me unfortunately, and I open up the action to $10, and the big blind is the only caller. So we're going heads up to a flop, which comes to Jack 10-6, and he donk bets immediately for $10. A bit of an awkward spot. Having 2 queens in our hand, it is unlikely he has a hand like King Queen, which is a straight draw, and then having the Queen of Hearts, it's slightly less likely he has a flush draw. So regardless, queens are just a little bit too strong here to flat, so I raised to $45, and he doesn't think too long and makes the call. So I'm praying to see a clean turn, preferably no jack, but it is a jack. Yeah, so that's not ideal, but at the same time, he does check it to me. With queens, I think in a spot like this, I think there still is a decent amount of draws to get value from. So I throw out a bet of $100. In retrospect, I do not like this sizing because only better's calling, and luckily he folds. So a bit of a bad play by me, to be honest with you guys, but yeah, just being transparent. Slowly crawling out of that hole when we look down at ace queen of hearts, this time on the button once again. Action folds to the cutoff, and he opens up the action to $11. Ace Queen is a good hand. I'm going to be putting in more money, so I size up to $35. Pretty standard. I actually think I can go a little bit larger. The blind's full, and it goes back to the cutoff. I have a lot of experience with this player, and he is pretty competent, so he makes the call, and we're off to see a flop. Hoping to see a flop that we improve on, which isn't really the case. It comes Jack 10-6 Rainbow. All diamonds. We do not have a diamond, and he checks it to me. And this spot is going to slightly favor his range more, but I think I'm going to be putting in a c-bet still, so I slide out a bet to the tune of $25, and he does not think for too long and does make the call. So we definitely need some help here on the turn, I would assume, which, boom, we get it with the king of clubs. So we drill Broadway, but it is still a monotone board. We can't be that scared of the flush. Now I definitely want to be going for some value, so I decide to throw out a bet to the tune of $80. This sizing is perfect to target maybe any ace of diamond or any diamond itself, or maybe any non-believing jack. And sure enough, he does make the call once again. I'd imagine if he had a flush, he'd be trying to put more money in at this point, so I'm almost certain I have the best hand. So we're off to see a river card, hoping that it is a brick, which looks pretty promising. The river is a 5 of clubs. So no draws complete, and he checks it to me once again. At this point, I'm almost certain I have the best hand, and the line that I took, I easily could have the ace of diamonds, and the way I'm looking at it is, once again, I know I have the best hand, and if he doesn't have anything, he's not going to call a bet at all, but if he wants to get sticky and try to be a hero, I want to try to get the maximum. So I decide to throw out a bet to the tune of $200, which is around 70% pot, but he snap fold. So it looks like he was on the draw himself, and we happily take down a pot with some cards that are helping us drastically there on the turn, so happy to take it down once again. And I think at this point we are now officially out of the hole. In this next shuffle, we look down at one of the better hands in No Limit Texas Hold'em, 8-7 of diamonds. Just kidding. This is just one of my more favorite hands that I like to play. So I'm definitely going to be opening up the action when it folds to me in the +1 position. So, yeah, this table's a bit sticky, so I'm going to size up my pre-flop raises now. So I size out a bet to the tune of $20. I know it looks like a massive raise, but the way that this game's been playing, I think it's fine at this point. And sure enough, the big blind does defend. So we're obviously a flop, which looks pretty good. The flop comes down 10-10-7 with 1 diamond. So we flop 2 pair, well, 1 pair. You know, people are controversial about calling 2 pair if there's a pair on the board, but whatever. I have 2 pair. I'm betting $30, and the big blind doesn't think for too long, and does elect that some chips are going to go in the middle in the form of a call. So still feeling pretty confident that I have the best hand here. So we're obviously a turn which comes a 5 of diamonds, which is a great card. So now we have a flush draw to go along with our 2 pair. He checks into me once again, and at this point I think about betting, but then I realize that I'm not scared of too much on the river besides maybe a club. So I like to just check it back, and we're obviously a river, which is beautiful. The river is a 2 of diamonds, so we back ourselves into a flush. This time, we love to see the big blind, who is a tighter player, lead out into us. He leads out into us for a sizing that is pretty big. He bets out $75. He only has around 130 or 125 behind, so I decided to just insta-rip it all in, and he quickly calls. I table my flush, and we are good, and he had queen 10 of hearts, so we get extremely lucky on that run out, and we are definitely running good here today. In this next hand, we look down at one of the trickiest hands to play in the game of No Limit Texas Hold'em, pocket jacks. Basically, we flop a set, heads up, and we take down a pot with a c-bet. Pretty uneventful, but it is a extra $100 that is coming our way. At this point, we are well out of the hole with a lot of chips in front of us. In this next hand, though, we do have 2 cards in front of us that is definitely one of my more favorite hands to play. 8-9 of hearts. We open up the action to $20 from the under the gun position, and a tighter player, he decides that more money's going in the middle. The low jack raises it up to $65. Well, to my surprise, the player that is on the button, he elects that 65 is a fair price, and he elects to just put in the good old cold call. So at this point, it is a bit awkward on what I should do. I'm definitely not folding, and I don't think I'm going to put in a raise just because the low jack player is a bit on the tighter side. So that leaves me with the decision just to make the flat call, and we're obviously a flop 3 ways with a hand that performs pretty well. So we're praying to see a good flop in which we flop the nuts. Jack 7-10 rainbow with 1 heart. I check and flow, but unfortunately both players check behind me. The turn is a 4 diamonds, and now I definitely want to be building a pot. With around $200 in the pot, I don't need to go too big because, once again, I have the nuts and I'm not scared of too much besides maybe a backdoor flush draw. The price I elect on is $80, and unfortunately, the player that initially raised, he decides to let his cards go and wait for a better spot, but thankfully the player on the button, he does elect that he's going to make a call and see one more card. We're obviously one more card, really not scared of too much, in which it does come down a 4 of clubs. Initially, this does look like a bad card, but he never really has a set here, which now would have improved to a full house, so I jam all in for his remaining $140, giving him a decent price, and he does elect on a call. I tabled the 8-9, and as expected, we are good, so we're going to be scooping another pot here tonight, running about as good as we can. By the way, did I mention that running good? Boom. Pocket kings in the cutoff, and what is even better is we see a hijack open to $10. Yeah, that bet is not sliding around me, so I decided to size up to $35, trying to get some more money in this pot. The small blind elects on a call, which is a bit odd, but I am absolutely loving the situation, and the big blind calls as well. What's going on? We're going 4 ways to a flop, and we have the second best hand in Texas Hold'em. Hoping to see a clean board, which is pretty promising. The board comes out all low cards. It is 6-9 deuce rainbow. No real draws on board besides 7-8, and when it checks to me, I definitely want to be putting in some money in this pot, so I decide to bet out a sizing of $100. Slightly on the larger side, but I don't hate it being 4 ways to a flop. If anyone has a 9 or any sort of 7-8 holding, they're going to be peeling one regardless. The small blind folds, the big blind thinks about it for a while, and he decides to let his cards go. At this point, we're praying for the hijack to tag along, in which he does. He slides out a mountain of red chips, so we're off to see a turn. Heads up now, in position. So the turn looks pretty safe. The turn comes a queen of hearts. So we still have an overpair, but the board is a lot more connected. At this point, when he checks it to me, I think I want to be playing a little bit more deceptively because this player is known to bet when I check to him. So I check it back to try to realize some equity, which is very much realized when we river a top set. So we're sitting here with the second nuts only behind Jack 10. And sure enough, he does elect to throw out a pretty large bet. He throws out a bet to the tune of $225, just falling right into our trap. So at this point, I almost know he never has Jack 10 here. I don't think he's ever floating. So I like to just jam all in, potentially trying to cooler him with a lower set, but he snap folds. So yeah, luckily our check there on the turn allowed us to get the maximum on that one, and we built up a monster stack to cash out in this session. Alright guys, just wrapped up the session and pretty straightforward. Yeah, we ran about as hot as we possibly could. We were in the game for 700. We were in the game for 700, but I had $1,000 in chips. So let's just say we were in for 1,000. We were out for 2,385. So that's a profit of $1,385. So definitely will take that for a 1-3 game. That is almost 3 buy-ins. So that's just absolutely insane. If we were playing 2-5, that'd be almost like a $3,000 win. So definitely will take that for a 1-3 game. And I'm happy I decided to play the 1-3 instead of the 2-5 because I knew deep down that I definitely was probably better off in this game than I would have been in that game. And surely it paid off. Obviously we ran hot, but the game definitely was good. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you haven't already, once again, hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you want to. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.